So after the last true bipocalypse in Week 13 fantasy football, we're now on to Week 14 fantasy football where there is a full slate of matchups. We've got no issues except, of course, the injury bug at this time of the year always seems to plague everybody. This is just the nature of fantasy football, is you see a lot of injuries at any position. It doesn't matter which one. You see it on the defensive side of the ball too. And here's the thing. We need to make every single position maximized when it comes to fantasy football points. So today we got to go through the top 12 fantasy football defense rankings for Week 14 fantasy football. And I'm one of the only fantasy football YouTubers who puts up defense rankings on a weekly basis. So please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Let's go ahead and just dive right into this right now. This may shock you. They have not only very rarely been on my top 12, they've never been a number one. I'll tell you that. I've got the Texans defense taking on the New York Jets in New York this week as number one. First of all, I said this last week when it comes to fantasy football defenses. Aside from Carolina and New England, you could argue that the Jets offense is the best matchup for a fantasy football defense at this point in the game. Seriously, what is better? I mean, they just cut the quarterback they started the last two games. The guy they started before that, well, they want him to be their guy again, but he's reluctant to be the starting quarterback again. It is absolute chaos in New York right now. Kind of feel bad for them, but I mean, the Texans defense, it's not like they're just some stalwart, right? You can see the numbers on the screen. Like, it can be hard to make a case for them as number one. This week, I really don't think it's that hard. I think the Texans defense is improving. I've discussed how I like the direction they're heading in, and I think they just get the perfect matchup for their situation. I've got the Texans defense firmly planted inside the top 12 and absolutely a number one. And at number two, I feel really confident again. I've got the Pittsburgh Steelers defense taking on the New England Patriots. Again, this is really all about matchup. When you look back to just 1 week ago in Week 13 versus the Arizona Cardinals, the Steelers not only were bad defensively that game, but they lost the freaking game. It was embarrassing. It's an embarrassing loss. And by the way, I got a comment on my fantasy playoff defense rankings video, and I discussed how the Steelers are poorly coached, and it was met with some heavy criticism. Here's the reality. They are poorly coached. You've got players talking after the game about how you didn't take them seriously. You don't hear that coming from D'Amico Ryan's defense in Houston. You don't hear that coming from the New York Jets with Robert Saleh. Trey Essex, a former offensive lineman, starter with Big Ben, called out Mike Tomlin for a terrible performance and how that's an indictment on him. They are poorly coached. But here's the thing. They are coming off an embarrassing loss, and this is the nature of this team. They will bounce back against the New England Patriots, even if Minka Fitzpatrick misses again, because he broke his hand in the last game. TJ Watt's not going to miss in all likelihood, but either way, they're taking on just one of the friendliest matchups in all of fantasy football for any defense, so I've got the Steelers at 2. Dolphins at number 3 here, and they're taking on the Tennessee Titans. There's 2 reasons for this, and they're relatively obvious. Like, don't overthink this one. The Dolphins defense is red hot right now. Absolutely on freaking fire. Fire. I mean, they've gotten like 60 points almost over the past 3 weeks. It's ridiculous what their defense has done. And it came as a little bit of a shock to me. I mean, I really didn't think that they were going to show as great of a performance against the Commanders as they did without Jalen Phillips. Now, Commanders are the Commanders, but they're taking on the Titans this week. This is an offense that last week against the Colts, rare game. 27 points in that game. How many other times have you seen the Titans do that this year? The answer is not many times. The Titans' offense just isn't that talented. The Dolphins' defense is red hot right now, and they're rolling, and they are fighting to put themselves at the number 1 seed. Dolphins, easy pick here at 3. 49ers defense versus the Seattle Seahawks at 4. I discussed this on my defense playoff video. I'm in love with the 49ers defense right now. They're in fantastic position to be an excellent fantasy playoff defense. It started a couple weeks ago, but it continues right now. The Seattle Seahawks just put up over 30 points against the Cowboys. Impressive performance. The 49ers defense, to me, you could honestly argue it's as talented as the Cowboys defense. They haven't had the same level of ceiling all year that Dallas has, but I would argue that 49ers defense out of the bye has looked better than the Cowboys defense. I'm just a simple believer in the 49ers defense. You can see what they're doing on the screen. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd, and that's not even counting really what they were doing a couple weeks ago. You know, this is a team that really is just in the right trajectory, and I'm all over them for not only this week, but just moving forward in the fantasy season. The Packers defense is at number 5 here, and they're taking on the New York Giants in New York. Matchup is just perfect, right? Like, the matchup against Tommy DeVito, once again confirmed as the starter. It just doesn't get a whole lot better than that. Now, the Giants have put up points in recent weeks. Like, they can do it because they're well coached offensively. They got a good coach with Brian Daboll. But the Packers defense, like, not only have they looked a little bit better recently, but also the matchup is just something you can't play around with here. Now, you can see the numbers on the screen. Less than stellar, to be completely clear. But this is a matchup here where you just have to take advantage of them playing the Giants. That is all, and that is all for now on the Packers defense, because sneak peek, they're a defense I'm watching very closely because based on their playoff schedule, I like them a lot. I just can't trust them yet. This week will go a long way in either helping or hurting my trust. The Saints defense at number 6, taking on the Carolina Panthers at home. Now, you have no idea how much it actually hurts to put the Saints defense here right now. It hurts because of the fact that the Saints defense has been atrocious the past several weeks. And it's not just isolated to their defense. Their whole team has been atrocious. But the matchup here, again, the top 6 defenses on this list, they've all got great matchups. The Carolina Panthers are no exception. The only thing that gives me pause with this whole situation is that it's an in-division matchup. You never know what's going to happen. So I'm leaving margin for error here. And because of the fact that the Saints defense has been much worse than they usually have been at the beginning of the season, it's no sure thing, but the matchup here, I'm going to bet on that 9 times out of 10. The Browns defense at Jacksonville this week. In Cleveland this week versus Jacksonville. So the Browns defense honestly would be a lot higher if we had clarity on this Lawrence situation. If you did not watch the Monday night game versus the Bengals, Trevor Lawrence went down in that game with an ankle injury and what they're calling a high ankle sprain. Now, to those of us watching, it looked a lot worse. I mean, he got not only just rolled up on, he got stepped on by his offensive tackle. And not only that, but he fell very awkwardly backwards. Looked like it could have hurt his knee as well. Short story, I think he's not going to play this weekend. And if that's the case, the Browns defense would move up over both the Saints and the Packers this week. So just keep an eye on that because the Browns defense, coming off a bad performance with Myles Garrett, they're going to be looking to get back in good graces here. And if Jacksonville just doesn't have Trevor Lawrence, you saw a sneak peek of it against the Cincinnati Bengals for about 2 minutes on Monday night. That Jacksonville offense does not scare me. Browns defense at number 7, and keep watch because they could go up as high as top 5. The Ravens defense against the Los Angeles Rams this week is at number 8. This one's tough, right? Because the Rams offense is rolling right now. There's no question about it. The Rams offense has Puka Nacua doing great again. Cooper Kupp got in the end zone again. Matt Stafford slinging the ball. It's looked so much drastically better for them. Now, the problem that ultimately resides with the Rams is their weak offensive line. And the best thing that the Ravens have in their favor is their pass rush. Now, they do a lot of other things well. You can see on the screen, they force turnovers too. They're an excellent fantasy defense. I think they match up well with the Rams. And coming out of the bye week, I like Baltimore to be able to come back and immediately do damage. The Colts defense is at number 9 here. And they're taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. So If you've been watching any of my defense content, any of them, the must start and sit videos on defense I do every week, or these rankings videos, or for the playoff rankings, you know I'm a big Colts defense guy. I really like the Colts defense in fantasy football. You gotta know when to be smart about it, though. There's nothing more I would love than if things worked out like Jake Browning was terrible on Monday night and the Bengals showed no life, the Colts would again be top 3. But the Bengals showed a lot, not only life, they showed extreme efficiency. Jake Browning threw 5 incompletions that game. 5. Crazy, right? I can't stand to put them much higher than this, because if they run that efficiently, the only turnover they gave away was that stupid Tyler Boyd interception throw. They're not going to do that again. I'll trust the Bengals 9 times out of 10 to make the right moves offensively, and that does put the Colts in a negative position. But with that being said, the numbers on the screen don't lie. They're an excellent fantasy defense. So the likelihood that they could cause a turnover or make a big play, certainly in the cards here. That's why they're still inside the top 10, not just the top 12. The Broncos defense at the Los Angeles Chargers here. Now, I really want to put them higher than this too. The Colts, the Broncos, and the Browns, I want to put them all higher. The Browns are the only one that are fluid right now. The Colts and the Broncos are kind of stuck where they're at as of this filming. The Broncos defense is taking on a divisional opponent. And I discuss this all the time on this channel because it's important for you to know for fantasy football purposes. Division matchups in the NFL, they can go either way. You don't know which way they're going to go. They could go either way. So I don't love that the Chargers are coming off 6 points against the Patriots. They're probably going to want to come out and show a good offensive showing. And the Broncos defense just gave up plenty of points to the Texans. So they're going to come out, they're going to want to do well. Ultimately, I'm going to go with a defense that has just been drastically improved. And numbers on the screen get better every week. With the exception of this past week, the Broncos are still a very good defense, though. Do not forget that. At number 11, I've got the Lions at Chicago this week. These last two, really, the Lions and then the Falcons at number 12, taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're really tough, and it's ironic because now that we've got all the teams back, it's still not super easy for me to be able to say, you know what, this is a great matchup here. We've got tons of great matchups, I'm confident in all of them. I don't feel that way. With these last two, I do not feel confident. Lions defense has been way worse than expected. I mean, they look like they're actually maybe getting worse. They're giving up a lot of points, and they're not really getting many turnovers. The Falcons defense is hit or miss. They hit last week versus the Jets, but if you remember in that video, I said this is really not a good defense. They just had a great matchup. I think that both these matchups for the Lions and the Falcons are good. Lions at Chicago, Falcons versus Tampa. Chicago and Tampa Bay are both the same. Even though they can put up points, they're both extremely turnover prone with wild quarterbacks who turn the ball over. That's their reality, and that's why the Lions and the Falcons are in here at 11 and 12. And as I do at the end of every single defense ranking video, I go through and I give you my favorite defense for you to pick up in advance for next week, if you have the roster space and if you can hold them on your bench. And I know for a fact that this defense is going to be on all sorts of waivers come Wednesday morning if you're watching this Tuesday night. It's the Chiefs defense. They're going to be on tons of waivers right now. And not only do I love them for the fantasy playoffs, but they're taking on the New England Patriots in Week 15. The New England Patriots, as I discussed with the Steelers, you could argue at this point, you could argue that is the best matchup for any fantasy defense to play against. Now, the Chiefs have their own issues. They've got lots of injuries to that side of the ball. They're not really trustworthy anymore, but with a defense that we've seen do great things earlier in the year, and with an offense that is as horrendous as the Patriots, I'm going to take the Chiefs upside any day, and that's why they're my favorite defensive pickup in advance for next week. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered for Week 14 fantasy football. And if you want to see the top 30 wide receiver rankings for Week 14 fantasy football, click on this video right here.